Welcome in, Fantasy Play Callers.
Hey there.
We have not been together in a while. We haven't done anything.
It has been a little bit, but we are back.
Yep.
We are ready and raring to go, and we have an awesome episode talking about Week 1 of the NFL season today.
Yep.
Which is great. Football's back, boys.
Finally, my life has meaning again.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. We're here.
Get the blood pumping. Here we go.
Yes. And before we can move on to anything else, as two Broncos fans and a Seattle Seahawks fan, we'll give you your moment in the sun.
I'm repping today. I almost wore my Russell Wilson jersey, but I feel like it would have been too mean.
It's too
So I
direct.
just went with the Seahawks shirt.
Way to be subtle about it and then talk about how you were not going to be subtle.
I know, but I think it's funnier to rub it in your face because, like, let's be real. How many like this am I going to get?
It's gonna say enjoy
Enjoy it.
short-term win over long-term ventures here.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
No, we completely understand on both sides. So,
yes, definitely.
Cool. So we're going to talk some news and injury updates,
Okay.
kind of off the bat here, guys, and
Yep.
go over some things. I think we'll kick it off with the big one that everyone is talking about, that you should be thinking about as well, and that, to me, is the injury to Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah, huge injury. Yep, happened almost right away in the game too, so you could kind of see the impact.
Yep, and we're already talking about who's going to replace him. It's a Kyle Shanahan offense. There's a lot of question marks floating around.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And we'll get into that a little bit more in detail here, but it's worth noting that he is MCL sprained,
out for 8 weeks.
done.
out for 8 weeks.
And that's guaranteed because he's on the IR, so he's not coming back 8 weeks.
Yeah, that's the
Completely.
minimum.
It's a
That is
minimum
the
he comes back.
absolute. As soon as he'll be back is week 9.
Yep.
I would also
Which is
expect
rough.
if they are a contender for the playoffs that they would probably rest him a little bit longer in order to secure his use in the playoffs. That's
Yep, don't want to
Kyle
bring him back
Shanahan's not for the
early.
rest
And
of them.
Slow burn back. Yep.
yeah, and they have some very competent backups, which we'll talk about.
Yep.
Again, in more detail, the other big one to me, this has a major fantasy impact, is the Dak Prescott thumb injury.
I would argue that that's probably
First off, before we talk about that game was crap. That was a boring
Is
game. But
is
it's
Tom
partly
Brady back? I don't think he is.
But no, partly because of Dak got hurt.
Yeah.
Midway through. So
Did you see them booing and throwing things at him as he went into the tunnel
I did
after
not
he
see
got
that.
hurt? Typical Cowboys fans.
brutal.
Yeah, that's not classy. Let's not do that.
They're unforgiving.
Right.
If you're at home and you're a Cowboys fan, why would
don't
you
be so
be like
hateful.
that?
Nice.
Well, they
There's
have
lots
a
of
reason. They
good.
haven't won for a long time. So
This is true.
But they need to be nice to the guy who is doing his best. To
Maybe it's
get
because
them a Super Bowl championship.
they put out bad juju in the universe, and that's why they're so angry all the time.
But
so.
you can't treat your star quarterback like that and expect him to stay. You saw what happened to Russell Wilson. I mean,
They did boo
they-
him also. They booed Russell at the beginning of that
let's
game.
cook Russ. Okay,
Let's cook Russ.
Russ.
Let Russ cook.
Let him
Let's
cook.
cook him.
No, but back to the actual injury to get us distracted.
Yeah.
That's a huge impact, not only to himself, obviously. The QB or the Dallas Cowboys offense is going to be
4 to 8
Everyone
weeks
takes a
was
hit.
depending on how the surgery goes.
Yeah,
4 to 8
And
weeks. That's a
he said to Jerry Jones that he's going to beat that, and they're not going to put him on the IR or whatever else. But look at what happened when Russell came back from that last year.
Yeah,
I mean, even
exactly.
coming back from that, it was
well.
Just throw
brutal.
a can.
Didn't Dak Prescott come back early from an injury previously, and he missed a little bit of time because of it? Was it his ankle?
It was his ankle.
a broken ankle was a big deal. Yeah.
So I mean, if we have a history of rushing back on injuries, I think Jerry Jones might tell him to pump the brakes. Which
I'm surprised they're not just saying, "Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
Like, we need to take a step back," and it is what it is. But
So what do you? We'll kind of get the news in there, but just real quick, what do you think the fantasy impact is on the players on the team? So CD,
I think it's massive.
Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard.
I'm part of these weird, like, everyone's part of them, Facebook, like, fantasy football groups, and I've been seeing people talk about, like, trying to get rid of, which,
CD.
we'll talk about trades and things like that later, but CeeDee Lamb is, like,
Yeah.
stock is dropping.
You know, one thing that can happen with backup quarterbacks, though, is that they sometimes will hyper-target the best player on the team, which I think bodes actually decently well for CD, but it's going to be less efficient. So it's kind of a hard balance. And as far as everyone else, Zeke, Dalton Schultz, who I've absolutely loved this offseason, I think takes a big hit.
I think he's going to take a pretty solid.
I think CD goes on to a low-end wide receiver, too.
I agree.
Yeah,
He's definitely not
absolutely.
wide receiver 1 anymore.
And Zeke, even though he looked pretty good, they're already splitting 50-50 with Tony Pollard anyways. And so now the offense is not going to score as much. You're looking at low-end RB2 probably just based off of...
Definitely a downgrade of all their players, which is...
Yeah.
That's a pretty sizable hit.
Yeah.
That's a pretty sizable
No,
hit.
it hurts. It definitely hurts. It's something to keep an eye on, especially when, whoever does being the guy, whether that's, it is Cooper Rush or if they bring someone else in, that matters a lot, and we'll see really quickly what the target distribution looks like.
I will point out that CD was having a bad game even before Dak got hurt. He had I think 8 or 9 targets and only a couple catches actually off of that.
But those Tampa Bay corners,
they are pretty good.
They're lethal.
Yeah,
it's
when they're healthy,
hard to have a good game against them.
When
they're healthy,
it's gonna be a rough year for a Cowboy fan.
I mean, not to continue, but to continue on for other. I mean, we got a lot of people who got injured this week.
Week 1,
I would say a fairly important one is Najee Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Although what I've read and what I've heard is that he's expected to play on Sunday. I do know that a Liz Frennick sprain or Lynn Frennick sprain.
I think you said it right.
Liz Frennick.
Yeah, Lynn Frank or sprain or something.
Something like that.
I'll go with
an L sprain.
L sprain. Look it up.
It's very likely to be re-injured, and so he had it previously, and so this is something that he sustained during the preseason. It's already a problem in week 1, and I would argue that the game they didn't use him as much as they probably could have.
Yeah.
And I would say even before that, their offensive line just looked not good at all. They were one of the worst coming in for graded.
Yep.
And
they definitely
basically, people were drafting Najee based off of he has great talent, but volume was one of the biggest reasons. And now he might not be able to handle that volume with this continuous.
Yeah, because if you're the head coach, you might even want to bring him back, but you got to put him on a pitch count.
You do.
You got to think it's like, look,
you do.
As much as we love the guy and we love the talent, like we have other players here for a reason, and he's going to have more of a committee even if he does play next week than he would have.
Yeah,
being 100%.
He's always been a 90% snap count guy. He'll probably. I would say if I was a coach, bring him down to 60. 60 maybe even 50.
50. Yeah.
Which I mean has a big fantasy impact, and we'll talk about Jaylen Warren a little later, but that's really the guy that is the consensus as far as to take that secondary role, and it did show that a little bit in the game as well.
Well, and other ones to talk about, T. Higgins.
Yep. He's on a concussion protocol.
He's going to be out for what, a week to 2 weeks, depending on how.
Yeah, the problem that he has is that they play the Thursday night game this week, so it's probably very unlikely that he plays this upcoming week.
Chargers Bengals this week, isn't it?
Yep. So it's a quick turnaround for him. So he's probably not going to play week 2.
I don't expect him to.
I would say week 3 is probably very likely. I don't think concussions usually are only a couple weeks, but
the most is 2. Maybe
unless
3.
they start throwing symptoms of constant headaches or getting dizzy or nausea if it's prolonged. But that's more
usually
rare.
Yeah. And not someone who, at least that I'm aware of, has a injury history with concussions.
He does. Yeah.
So.
Jamal Adams, some defensive injuries that are going to affect. I mean, and then one that has a massive impact. Unfortunately, the Steelers are just injury racked. Is T.J. Watt.
Yeah, tough week as a Steelers fan. You did sneak out that awesome victory against the Bengals, but the flip side is Najee out. I mean,
and your
potential defensive player of the year, T.J. Watt, is done for the season. It sounds like.
Did you see he said it on the field after he got injured?
Yep.
Yeah, the look on his face was just pure.
Absolute terror.
Yeah, it was anger. It was upset. It was like, I mean, you could just see it in his eyes. You feel so bad. What a great guy. What a great player.
Yeah.
Things like that suck. Jamal Adams, same vein there.
We're not really that
upset about it. As far as his timeline, though, he originally got told that he might have to have surgery, and then he got second and third opinions, and so now they're saying that he might not have to have surgery.
Oh.
And J.J. Watt actually last year had the torn pec as well, and he came back way earlier than they expected, but I think he came back right before the playoffs, so he was out 10 or 12 games. So he does have the potential maybe coming back.
He'll take a trip down.
I was under the impression he was out for the whole season.
He purposely got second and third opinions, and they said that he might not need surgery. If that's the case, he could come back. But it'll be a long time.
That's also shaky and kind of risky, though.
Yeah, JJ came back and he played through the playoff game. So, but we'll see.
One that you probably want to tackle before we go ahead and finish up on these injury, suspension, and news is Brian Robinson.
Oh yes, Brian Robinson. He has an updated timeline. He looks like he's coming back week 5.
Yep.
from the sounds of it, which is
massive.
Insane considering that he recently was shot.
Yeah. Considering your life was in danger and almost died. That's a great timeline.
And really looked good in the preseason. Yep. Took the starting job over there, over Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick. So could have a big fantasy impact when he comes back, and he's coming back a lot sooner than you think. So maybe worth taking a look at there, and Brian Robinson for sure.
I think he's definitely going to be a fantasy key player at this point. I mean, Antonio Gibson had a pretty sizable role in the game on Sunday.
If you have your IR slot sitting there empty and he's sitting in the free agents, what are you doing?
Yeah,
that's a good one to go. Just
put him right in there.
Slide him right on in there.
Especially if you have more than one. Like, you have one, that's great too. But if you have two, I don't know why it's not already in there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great little sneaky way to cheat your roster size a little bit and get who could be a very good. A promising rookie player at the least.
Give you more flexibility to pick up some of the people that we'll talk about today. For waiver wire.
So we can go ahead and...
A couple others I want to mention, though. Not that they didn't get injured this week, but for coming into this next couple weeks. Like, J.K. Dobbins sounds like he's going to be out for another week or two. I mean, I just heard about that, so that'll be interesting when he comes back. So I wanted to touch base on that one.
And there were concerns even coming into the season that injury might be... one, it might take him longer than he was expecting to come back, and two, that it might be a nagging injury even when he does for the first year or so. So, I mean, that is kind of a... If you took a shot on him, it's a tense situation right now, and we'll see how that plays out.
I took a shot on him in one of our leagues, Dynasty League, so I'm not really not upset about it.
Yeah, at least you get the long run,
But I did... remember that he was talking on Twitter and he was saying he was like, I'm coming back week 1, and very quickly got shut down that he was not coming back in week 1. I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to keep him benched as long as possible.
Really came at Ian Rappaport for suggesting that he was coming back week 1, and
then he proceeded to not.
Ian Rappaport, as usual, comes out looking like a very intelligent person that has insider information. So.
Probably does.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure he does. George Kittle still is unsure for week 2. Is worth noting. So
Keenan Allen. Did we talk about him?
Yeah,
he's Thursday night too, so he's probably not going to, based off the hamstring injury, he probably won't play.
From what I understand, it's not gonna. It's very unlikely that he plays Thursday night. But it's not a long-term injury. I think they did the X-rays. He got a couple of them done, and it didn't show anything that was a long-lasting concern. So I expect
worry with those hamstrings, though, is it could be not long-term, be short, and then if they come back and they re-injure it could just it could linger.
And they come back.
It's another reason why he probably will not be back next week, because they know that too. Hopefully they're cautious.
Very good point. Alan Lazard, I think, just to touch base, I think he's coming back next week. He was a game-time decision, so that'll be a good addition to the... fall on the face Packers this week. So
it might be a really good buy low candidate that actually I don't think any of us had on our list, but it's worth mentioning as maybe an honorable mention for buy low. If he's coming back, and the Packers really they need wide receiver help right now pretty bad.
And they need people who Aaron Rodgers is familiar with. Aaron Rodgers likes to throw to people that he knows, which is why he hit Randall Cobb so much.
In his defense, though, Christian Watson had one of the worst drops I've seen in a while.
He did.
Oh my!
I bet all in on Christian Watson because he's got so much upside and so much talent. And I know he has drop issues.
In his defense, he burnt.
I mean, he's a very good route runner, and he's elite speed size ratio. His relationship and all of that is great. But if you don't catch the ball,
Jerry Jeudy,
Aaron Rodgers. Hey, he got the touchdown.
He had like 2 drops.
He got the touchdown.
One damn game.
He's getting there. He's a youngin'. He hasn't played football in 6 years.
Bronco fans were still a little bitter. Yeah. Much love to the Broncos, but that one hurt. That one hurt.
It's a long season.
Yeah. It's a long season.
Okay, just like I got to deal with it all season. You guys will.
We'll think about it.
It'll bounce back.
Yeah, you guys will be fine. Don't worry. Hey, I mean, the drop. Like, Aaron Rodgers is quick to write people off, and Romeo Doubs Christian Watson might not be on Aaron Rodgers' playlist or.
We'll see. They have one of the most unique wide receiver situations in the whole NFL, and I'm not ready to write Christian Watson off yet.
But Aaron Rodgers needs familiarity and trust with his wide receivers.
He clearly disagrees.
I don't want to write him off. It's just there's going to be a lot more growing pains. It's like how long can you keep him on your bench until he
until Jordan Love takes over.
Think about it this way: if Christian Watson had caught that pass, we'd all be talking about how Christian Watson is the waiver wire pickup of the week, and because he would have had he would have had a 100-yard game with that catch, 70-yard catch. He had 40 yards as it was.
Well, okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, he would have been a top 10 fantasy wide receiver this week off of one play, and that's what he's capable of. The question is, can you make it consistent? And this was what plagued Marquez Valdes-Scantling there too. So it is something we've kind of seen before, and that did not end up well.
It didn't.
Obviously, he's on another team, and it's still struggling on the other team now.
Yep. And everybody forgets how much weight Aaron Rodgers has in that locker room, and if he doesn't like somebody, he doesn't think that that guy's not going to stick around for very long.
Yep. So we'll see. We'll see if Watson gets another shot with Rodgers or how that relationship goes.
I got high hopes for him.
Cool. Well, let's get into some waiver wire pickups here.
Let's go with pickups to start, and let's break them up into grab now and watch. And let's go for the grab now. Quarterbacks. You guys got any quarterbacks that you want to see maybe grab now?
So depending if you're streaming the position, especially, but Carson Wentz, I know everybody rags on him. He was actually not.
Tua Viglia, Carson Wentz didn't have a bad game. Matt Ryan.
Carson Wentz had a four touchdown game. He blew up. He was the number
330 yards.
He was the number 3 quarterback on the week, and he actually has a good matchup next week going into. So that'd be something to look at.
Well, the other thing too is that Carson Wentz now has truly elite wide receivers in my opinion. I think Jahan Dotson looked great. Yeah. Scary Terry McLaurin is still there.
Yes.
He's fantastic. Obviously, you still have Logan Thomas. J.D. McKissick does a great job coming out of the backfield. He has real receiving options.
He does.
For the first time in a long time. And we'll see how that all pans out. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on at the very least.
He spread the ball around pretty much all day. I mean, Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel were essentially identical in how they're in their fantasy impact this week. I think the only one that got left behind was Terry McLaurin.
Yes, that will not be the case for the season. But yes,
I wouldn't worry. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
Absolutely. No, it's a good point. And I almost forgot about Curtis Samuel. How could I? Yeah. How dare I?
Because he got traded from the Panthers and had relatively no impact. He had a great game.
Well,
last year he was expected to have a good fantasy year, but he was injured, never got off.
So already talking about wide receivers. So Curtis Samuel, I think he's definitely a good wide receiver to throw out there.
Sure. Real quick, can we go back to quarterbacks a minute? Because I have one I would like to talk about. This is going to be controversial. But Marcus Mariota, okay?
I like that.
Hear me out here. Arthur Smith revived Ryan Tannehill's career, okay? And I think he's doing something very similar for Mariota, who also, the bonus on the fantasy, we always talk about rushing quarterbacks. I mean, this is a guy who has a rushing floor of 40, 50 yards a game. And on top of that, was very efficient with the ball, has great wide receivers.
Yep.
Between Kyle Pitts and Drake London now, Cordarrelle Patterson coming out of the backfield.
Yep.
I mean, I think he's in a really good situation, and it's something to at least keep an eye on. If not, if you really need quarterback help to go pick up. So.
Didn't put the ball into Kyle Pitts' hands as much as I would have expected him to. Which is kind of a bummer.
Kyle Pitts had a really tough cornerback matchup, actually. That was part of the issue.
I expect him to have a much better future for this year. It's just Marcus Mariota was really the question mark when he was going into this. And if Marcus Mariota can get the ball down there, I think Kyle Pitts' head I have no problem picking up for the next few weeks.
Looked good in a new system. And you obviously proceeded with a little bit of caution, but when you have a nice rushing floor and if he's doing well, I mean, I think it's
really not a bad option to have.
Yeah.
Other couple, Jameis actually looked pretty good based off of the weapons he had out there. Jarvis Landry actually looked like he still had a lot left. Michael Thomas looked like he was still powering balls and catching 2 touchdowns out there.
Michael Thomas, like 2019 Michael Thomas.
He looked like Michael Thomas out there.
He was actually on a snap count actually because he was questionable going into the week with that hamstring, so he didn't even play a full gamut of snaps. So
I wouldn't expect.
That's interesting.
That's interesting.
So, and then
Chris Olave looked pretty decent.
Yeah.
He got some play time in there. And Jameis Winston hooked up with him a couple
times. The other one
times.
I'll mention too, because we're still on quarterbacks and we can kind of move on after that. But Justin Fields had a It was a terrible game because of the weather. If you guys saw what the weather was like, it was literally just
completely... So the field didn't, like, what they had, it doesn't drain.
Yeah.
So it was completely flooded. I don't know if you saw it before, they were, like, squeegeeing it out.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane. So, really, that game was really hard to deal with for anybody as far as throwing the ball or doing anything like that. So, but he had a lot of... rushed about, I think, 11 times is what I'm seeing here. And then... he had some accurate passes and stuff too, and it just was a terrible game. I think, and throw it out. I think that's somebody to keep in mind too.
I think he's more of a watch as opposed to a must-have right now. I would say that he's somebody definitely to keep an eye on.
Yep. Once again, rushing floor, good upside.
So if you're streaming the position, just to put a bow on the QB side of it, what would you prioritize? What would you spend on your top pickup for free agency or your budget, basically?
Well, so if
Carson Wentz in Detroit,
is
who had as my streaming options this week at QB.
I wouldn't spend too much on it though.
Yeah,
but I would say that that's a decent one to throw in there.
I don't know if I'd even spend on it, but you could probably
put a couple waivers in at zero bid, $1 or $2.
Yep, and if you can get him off the top, I think that's great. I liked Matt Ryan at Jacksonville too.
I really like Matt Ryan at Jacksonville, but from what I remember, the Colts have not won a game in Jacksonville for the last 14 times they've been there. So I don't know if I would necessarily choose Matt Ryan.
Well, I'll take my chance with Matty Ice. We'll see what happens, but I don't mind it.
And they had a pretty lackluster game against the...
Throw out Kirk Cousins. I know he's not available in every league, but...
If he's available.
100%.
Please grab Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I'm showing like roster percentage in Yahoo, which is one of the primary platforms that we use. He's only at 52%, so it's right at that threshold of he might be available. So check out there for that.
Tua is another one who, what I saw is he was available in like 60% of leagues, but if you're in that 40% where he's available, I would say that's not a bad option to have. It looks like he's
passes for touchdowns, boys.
He's making good relations with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
So now that we've recommended every quarterback on the waiver wire,
I would say the priority's definitely got to be Carson Wentz. I would say Carson Wentz, if you're streaming a quarterback, is definitely going to be the one that you have to go for.
If Kirk Cousins is still there, of course. Yes, guys like that. Let's get into running backs if we could.
Yeah,
actually,
I got two guys that I really like. Three. One is a maybe. He might be out there. I think he's owned in most leagues, but if he's there, Michael Carter. Simply from the fact that it looks like he's going to be the one who's the dude for a little bit longer with Breece Hall. Breece Hall didn't get as much touches as he wanted, or as we kind of expected him to.
Yep.
And from what I remember, Breece Hall was going 7 to 9 was his average in the round that he was going. And Michael Carter, I think, was around mostly 11 through 13.
Breece, I think, was 4th round.
Yeah. So even worse.
Yeah.
And Michael Carter was in a lot of the leagues that I was in. He was on the waiver wire. I frankly don't really understand it because I feel like last year he had a pretty good impact while he was there.
Well, and it's still, no matter what happens, I think you are in a committee situation too. Yeah. I think that they're pretty committed to there's not going to be a workhorse back here. We are gonna.
I would say he's worth an ad though. The way that he played.
No, I mean he's been the better one in the committee so far, and that says a lot. And that's how you get those workhorse roles. And if something were to happen to Breece Hall, obviously you get that bonus.
And the bonus is that currently Joe Flacco's the quarterback, and he does not move. He's a statue out there, so he does a lot of dump offs, and that's where PPR comes really into play. He had Michael Carter had 7 catches.
Yep.
And I think Breece Hall had 10 targets as well. So I mean, you're talking. I mean, it's a lot.
So they're both not bad options, but I would say it's
based off of how they played. I mean, they looked a little bit better, but they're going to be coming from behind most of the time. Anyways.
Yes, that's true too.
My one that I would say, if you have availability, dump all your money into it, is Isaiah Pacheco. Because I wouldn't say all your money, but I would say dump a significant amount of money into it because he looks like what Clyde Edwards-Helaire should have looked like 2 years ago.
Yeah, here's what I'll say on him is that it was my opinion going into the season that Kansas City was looking for an explosive running back at the position. I thought that's why they brought Ronald Jones in. I thought that's who they were going to have there. Because they just need someone that Clyde will get you 4 to 5, but Kansas City's offense is really built around the big plays and explosive dynamic plays, and they haven't had that at running back for a while. Nope. And I do think that Pacheco has really shown he's got 4.3 speed.
Pacheco.
Is it Pacheco?
It's Pacheco.
My apologies, Pacheco.
No, I honestly didn't know. I was literally
I think
asking
it's
a question.
Pacheco.
I thought it was Pacheco. We'll Google it. We'll find out. We'll find out.
We're
We'll get back to you.
We're going to tweet Pacheco.
Yeah, we'll ask him directly.
Yeah.
Can you please let us know?
Please.
But any which way, he's a fantastic player. I mean, he averaged over 5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Got a touchdown.
Which the 5 yards per carry for me says a lot about his ability to play.
I completely agree with that. The take that he did look good in the work that he had, but the work when he came in was when it was actually already a blowout at that point. So that's my only concern is that, yes, he looked really good. I think he is really explosive, but Clyde took almost majority of the work when there was actually still a game.
But Clyde didn't do very much with that said work, which is why I would say, and I would also say that...
Scored 2 touchdowns.
I mean, that's it, though. He didn't get very much yardage, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Clyde will be relevant, and he will be a pass catching back and a short down back
Pacheco,
for sure.
But he's not
when both healthy, I don't think they're going to split. They're not. It's not going to be a 50-50
70-30.
Which is fine, but you're not going to be able to start Pacheco unless Clyde gets hurt or he starts taking on more role.
Which he does have an injury history, though.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that if you get Pacheco now, you can end up with by week 8 or so.
Yeah, so he's
someone
a stash.
who could really.
So I think we should really differentiate that from you can play him right away.
But the thing is,
long-term stash.
He's not a watch because I know for a fact that he's going to be gone after this week and next week. Like the way that the running backs get scrapped up in a lot of these waiver wires.
Already owned in 31% of leagues, coming off of a week where he saw 12 touches and a touchdown.
I do think, and I agree. The problem is to hold somebody till week 8. Take up that roster spot the whole time when injuries and buys and stuff like that come along.
But I don't think he's going to be. I think he'll be more startable than you think. Also,
I think he'll be startable sooner.
But I think that he will. Rookies tend to come in later.
Yep.
I think he might have a chance to be a 1A to Clyde by about then.
I think Clyde had CEH is on a downward slope simply because of the fact that he was injured last year for a pretty significant amount of time. It didn't look like he was getting too much work when he was back in. I don't know if that was just because they were concerned about his potential to re-injure or keeping him healthy, especially with the fact that the Chiefs are always eligible for a playoff run. But I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing that he was put in later because they're testing a new guy. He's a brand new rookie.
So put your money where your mouth is. How much of your fab budget, percentage-wise, would you spend on getting Pacheco this week to stash for who knows how long?
The most that I would spend, what
would you recommend?
I put in for 15.
So 15% of your.
I would say 10 to 15%. I would say 10 is my goal.
Yeah. I would probably do a little bit lower than that, but probably 8 or 7% probably.
Sure.
Put a little bit in there.
All right. Yeah.
Obviously, I would not get him. So.
You get beat by Ethan.
Yeah.
I will bet on the talent. And
one I wanted to bring up that again he won't be rostered he'll be rostered in a little bit above 50% of leagues, but he still could be out there because people are really concerned about the injury coming into the year, his Achilles. James Robinson actually looked coming back.
Yeah.
He was the exception to the rule for the Achilles injury because he looked like he still had a lot of juice left. Actually,
looked fantastic. Only owned in 60% of leagues. 11 touches on the ground with a touchdown and 66 yards. So very efficient on those touches.
Yep.
He had a reception as well, and he can catch it. We've known for a long time. He's shown that
he can catch it. I will say that it looked like Travis Etienne's going to get a high majority of the third down work, but that's okay. You know the roles. It makes it easier to do that split. You know what roles.
And Etienne played out of the slot a bit as well, which means that they can both be on the field too, which does help. Same with the Pollard Zeke situation, right? It helps if they can play them both.
It's a very aggressive offense now. It's a different change of pace than what they had last year under Urban Meyer, which I think is a good thing for pretty much everybody there. But it could be good for James Robinson too, is if they're going to split these carries, kind of like you're saying with Tony Pollard and Zeke, where it was almost 50%. That's pretty sizable impact for James Robinson if you can pick him off the waiver wire. I would say that's a good stash.
Absolutely, you could. If you need to, you could play him right away. He's something that you could actually, instead of actually having just a stash, you can start him immediately. I think for him, for like a fab, depending on how needy you are, if you don't need it, maybe at 10%, 15%. But if you're one that didn't get an RB2 or desperate.
20.
Yeah, you could go 25%.
I completely agree. I think that's
30,
completely reasonable.
Oh, yeah.
And don't forget too that being aggressive early when you see someone like this come up tends to work out. If you look at the data historically, that like if you're aggressive early, you do a lot better than if you're aggressive late with Fab.
And I would even argue that some of the better guys to come off of the waiver wire that have been notable, like James Conner and Philip Lindsay, who had notable fantasy impact. The people who got them didn't get them 3-4 games in. They got them week 1
right away.
and 2 right away. I mean, the guys who got them in week 2 were lucky, but everybody who got them in week 1, massive payoff.
Yeah, it's great to think about, I'm going to want waiver wire budget if I make the playoffs. Hey, you got to win now to make the playoffs, too. Yeah. It's the other thing. Let's talk about someone that everyone loves to hate. Okay? This is someone that is not a super efficient football player. In general, was not very efficient on his touches, but the volume is there. And I'm, of course, talking about Rex Burkhead.
I did want to bring him up today, so I'm glad you brought him up. So.
14 touches on the ground, had 5 receptions for 30 yards. Look.
How does it feel, Dameon Pierce Trutherist?
That's right.
I feel pretty good right now.
I saw him go round 4 or 5 in one of the leagues.
Towards the end of the draft, season, people were
so hyped.
And he didn't do anything.
And this little white running back comes in here, he's like 30, he's 32, 33 years old.
33. Yes.
Let me put some water in your fire.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I will say that I think in the long run, Dameon Pierce does take this job.
I would agree.
But if you need someone to fill in for, let's say you have Elijah Mitchell, or you have, what are the other? Najee Harris, maybe.
Harris,
that's a good one. Or if you just have struggled, and you just need someone to fill in for the first 5 to. I mean, it's probably going to take, once again, rookies take a while to come on. Same kind of similar situation with Pacheco.
Yep.
Is it might be week 8 before Dameon Pierce really has that RB1 role. And in the meantime, Rex Burkhead is cheap. He's going to get touches.
Yeah.
They clearly like this guy.
Yep.
And while that's happening, he's owned in 13% of leagues. Go snag him. Even if it doesn't pan out, you don't really lose anything. You can drop him the week after, but I mean, with this volume.
I would say, with that being said, spending maybe 5% of your fab is going to be
that's a really good point, because for those type of players that there would be really good fill-ins. You don't want to overspend for those, because
absolutely.
But that being said, he is a reliable filler, so he would be more worthwhile putting more money into.
Yes, don't overspend on him.
No,
but
at the end of the day, it's going to pan out.
Yes, but
people are going to laugh at you for having him in your lineup, but he'll score. 15 points.
You can get laughed at all the way to a championship.
I got a fun one for us to talk about, because I think this is going to be something that everybody's going to be talking about. Dontrell Hilliard.
Oh, yes.
Derrick Henry did not necessarily do what everybody thought Derrick Henry was going to do, and Dontrell Hilliard came in and just cleaned up.
Yeah.
And played almost the way that we were expecting Derrick Henry to play. Is this a sign of, almost like with the DeMarco Murray, how Derrick Henry took over? Do you think that this might be a sign of, hey, we got this big dude coming off of an injury. He's 28 now, isn't he?
Yep.
He's a little older. Maybe we don't want to ruin him. Maybe we want him to play for a little bit longer. Snap count, is Dontrell Hilliard now a handcuff that we want to own?
For handcuff, I mean, I think for sure. What I think it says to me more than anything is that we want someone else doing the third down work that Henry has not been good at, which has kind of always been the case.
It's almost okay.
But we found the guy who is very capable of it and has now proven that, I mean, he can do it. Right?
That's why people didn't want to draft Derrick Henry in the first round. They've known this forever. He was the exception to the rule. Like, if somebody that's not involved in the passing game as running back, you don't want, except if they're Derrick Henry. But we see, but
shout out to Nick Chubb.
If you don't get the touchdowns, if your offense goes down, which the Titans, with the amount of talent, they took a step back.
They did.
He's not going to get as many touchdowns, which can be a big issue if you're just getting 30 carries for 90 yards. That's only still 9 points.
But it's almost worth it to be said that kind of a similar situation that I'm starting to see is a Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, where Alvin Kamara is getting the bulk of these snaps. Maybe Derrick Henry's going to get a similar bulk, and then Mark Ingram ended up with the third down on the goal line. It looked like that's what they used Hilliard for.
Right. I don't think he didn't get a goal line. He got he got
a touchdown.
It was
scored though. Yeah.
It was off a pass. Yeah. Because Derrick Henry he's. I don't think anybody's gonna take goal line from Derrick Henry.
The way they played him was almost like cautious.
And there might be some of that. And you know what? He might still. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. He could have re-aggravated the injury.
He might still be hurt.
They could say, "Hey, look, you're fine to play, but we'll keep you on a bit of a pitch count early in the season." Don't get me wrong. If you can buy low on Derrick Henry,
well, we'll get to the buy low, and don't worry. That'll be something that we'll talk about plenty on.
No one wants to write off Derrick Henry just yet, but Hilliard is worth noticing, especially in PPR formats, of course.
Yep.
That he's going to get a lot of third down work, and he should.
I think he will. I think he'll be a good. He might be a good stash, maybe a good handcuff for Derrick Henry, for a player that everybody wants. Wide receivers.
Well, real quick, we got.
You got more.
We have. One I want to touch on, Jalen Warren.
Okay. That's right.
The backup for Najee.
Yep.
So if this is a lingering Najee injury, or as we mentioned, even if he comes back and is on a pitch count, right? Jalen Warren might be worth snagging. Once again, I think to me he's in the Rex Burkhead category. Let's not overspend here. Let's not get crazy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely somebody you want to pick up, but I lower bid because the offense didn't look good. The quarterback didn't look good. The offense line didn't look good.
Mitchell Trubisky didn't look good.
Wow, isn't that the biggest surprise?
Wow, what a surprise.
No way.
It's almost like he didn't look good at every other team he was on.
Like probably 2 or 3 more games and
I love you, Mitch.
Pickett's going to start.
I think Pickett's
got
to really help that
the
out.
time is
well, I know,
very
but
quickly.
I think they'll give him about 3 or 4 more games probably before they put him in.
I would say quarter season mark, he'll probably be the guy. Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, right now they're 1-0 against a very good team.
True.
If they start, 3-1, it's
But
hard to switch QBs at that point. It is.
They burn the sails on this one though. Like they really put everything on the fire in order to get this win. And like you were saying earlier, was it really good for them to go in there, and now they're missing their star defensive player of the year and their possibly star running back. Like.
Yeah, it's rough. It was a rough
victory,
and they won that game through their defense.
And
it wasn't an offensive.
Quite frankly, a bad call not to challenge the Jamar Chase touchdown as well is worth noting in there.
Yeah.
There was a lot that happened. Don't get me wrong, but that was
that went down on that. But no, that's a really good call out. I just would kind of do a smaller bid.
Yeah,
5%.
I'd almost even go lower, 3-4.
Yeah.
I mean,
I will say people are really going to, because they're looking at the similar situation with Le'Veon Bell. Like the Steelers running backs do have problems with them, and the backups tend to be pretty decent. I remember when Le'Veon Bell was hurt and D'Angelo Williams was in a couple years ago. He was solid. People will go after the Pittsburgh running backs because it's a high-powered offense. Like
they have a history of being that, but they've lost a lot of offensive line, and the quarterback situation is not quite as good. Okay, now to the elephant in the room, the biggest waiver wire pickup of the week, in my opinion. And if you're going to spend 20 to 25% on James Robinson, what are we going to spend for Jeff Wilson or Jordan Mason here? I think both are kind of worth mentioning in the same vein.
Oh man. So here's my take on the San Francisco running back room is that it is a horse race, and at this point you are just bidding on whatever horse name sounds right, in hopes that he'll run and give you that big jackpot. And I really think that that's been evident for the last few years. The same happened with Raheem Mostert last year when he got injured, and all of a sudden they were like, well, who's going to be the guy? Everybody thought, I think it was Tevin Coleman. Somebody else was, and then all of a sudden Elijah Mitchell popped up, and he was the dude. Like,
Tyrion Davis-Price, who was a third round pick.
He was inactive.
Who was inactive for this game? Yep, because Jordan Mason beat him out. That's why. And Mason
undrafted too.
Was undrafted, just like Elijah Mitchell, though.
Yep.
So they don't care over there.
Nope.
The Shanahans do not care. If you can run their system, you can run their system. And that's what concerns me about Jeff Wilson. People are going to spend a lot of money to get him. I've heard talk of 50, 60% of your waiver wire budget. Wow. And don't get me wrong, I think that he's definitely the front runner in that horse race, but I think there's a chance that it does not end up that way.
Yeah.
When he went out, Jeff Wilson got he got all the work after that. So he does have a history in the past. Like in 2020, there was weeks where Jeff Wilson actually was like in the top 5 running backs multiple weeks. So I do think that he has some talent there and he has some trust based off of history. So I wouldn't go 50%. Is absolutely ridiculous.
I would say if you can snag him for a decent bit lower than that.
Yeah, I'd say 20%, and then if you're really needy to go to 30. And then I would
even say, because it's so early and we have a lot of, maybe 25% is as high as I would go on something like that, and that's simply because there's such a monumental risk. Like you're saying, like obviously there's more evidence that he's a good guy and that he might be the good guy to pick up, but there's such a monumental risk associated with it that I don't know if I really want to. So
let me ask you guys this: is it worth, if I can get Jordan Mason for 3, 4, 5% of my waiver wire budget, is that worth it?
You can get him
for free?
For free.
Yeah.
So owned in 1% of leagues.
In majority of leagues.
There's going to be a huge run on him because of the fact that Elijah Mitchell is out.
So, I'm really looking at, I might just be stashing him for a week and just saying, hey, let's see how next week pans out and see what happens.
If you're good. If you have the roster spot, you're willing to drop somebody, I think it's a good idea to try to stash him, see how it plays out next week, and then base it off of that.
And even if you're not hurting on running back, like if you're like, I got 2 running backs, maybe even 3 that I'm solid on, I don't need this guy, but I have a little bit of money that I can throw at it to make my position possibly better. It might be worth it.
Yep.
I would say shoot for Jeff Wilson. Only if you really, really need him.
Well, maybe I really, really need a RB2.
The fact that there's such a high risk with it it's a lot to dissuade me. So. All
right, let's get into some other positions for the waiver wire pickups here.
Can I just do a couple mentions of some other ones that we won't add? They'll be really quick throughs.
Sure. Give us a speed round. Ask us what we would do. How about that?
Okay. Kenneth Gainwell.
No.
Yeah, snag him.
Yeah, he's rostered in just below 50% of the leagues. He was got a touchdown. He also
did Boston Scott also play similar?
Boston Scott had some carry. He had 1 touchdown. But Kenneth Gainwell actually was mostly the third down back for the Eagles.
I haven't had Kenneth Gainwell available in any of my leagues.
He's at 48%.
Yeah.
So it's about half and half.
Yep.
Yeah, so, if he's available, I like Gainwell.
Khalil Herbert's kind of the similar vein. Really good backup. He actually, I think, outplayed David Montgomery in the actual game. So I think that's a really, again, that's not a, you could play him. He gets like 30% of the snaps.
I like Khalil Herbert. I had somebody try to trade me David Montgomery and package deal for Khalil Herbert, and I turned him down. I like Khalil Herbert.
So these are, I think, what I'd say high-end handcuffs.
If they're available,
they have some value to themselves, but so some people just kind of think about and look at on the waiver wire.
Sure.
And then what about there's one last one. Benjamin. I wanted your thoughts on for the Arizona Cardinals and what if you guys saw anything or what your thoughts on that.
I mean, I don't mind. I think that you need a James Conner injury for him to matter. If I'm being honest, it's just kind of how I view him. So
he did look very explosive. There was some talk of training camp. He looked explosive. He's very elusive.
He's a very good running back. He might actually be better between the 20s than James Conner. But James Conner does what he does for a reason.
James Conner looked good.
Yeah, he gets all the red zone work.
I wouldn't be looking at him unless I was staring down a Conner.
One last one for handcuff that actually got some good goal line work. Actually scored 2 touchdowns. Jamal Williams. I mean, obviously not one that's going to be. Yeah. He's about below 50%, so it kind of meets the threshold.
I'll say this. For the last 2 years, Jamal Adams has been back up to a guy who is very skilled. In one case, it was DeAndre Swift. In the other case, it was Aaron Jones. Both really skilled running backs. They're good at what they do. The problem with Jamal Williams is that you have to gamble on the game that you're going to go to.
Yeah.
And I've tried to do that a couple times, and it's pretty difficult. Sometimes you're going to play him, and he's going to maybe see the field for 20% of the snaps, and he's going to touch the ball once or twice. And then games he might go in, and he might just wreck like he did the other day.
Yeah. So high value handcuff, but I view him as a handcuff more than anything else.
So another stash.
Definitely not.
So some people just to look. I think those are people you want to have on your bench to stash. The promise is the last one, and we'll move on. Rashard White is one that I wanted to bring up as a potential stash and keep on your bench. It seemed like he actually moved up the depth chart and is now the definitive RB2 behind Leonard Fournette. And Fournette actually is doesn't have a great history of staying healthy either.
No, and he's up there in age quite a bit. And actually, he limped off the field and then did not come back on. So, I mean...
He had that massive block that he made.
And Rashard White has a lot of explosiveness, and he's a very good pass catcher, which Tom Brady absolutely loves.
They've been saying a lot of good things about Rashard White since he rolled into training camp. So, I mean, this is definitely one that it's not a watch anymore. It might be time to pull the trigger on.
And
get him now before that...
Really important stash.
Before Fournette goes out, or they start really using him for third down work.
Can we rank, and then before we move on, can we rank your top 4 pickups for running back? What order would you put them in?
So we know. Number 1.
Wilson, Robinson, Pacheco, and I hate to say this out loud, but Rex Burkhead.
Okay.
Snag him.
All right.
Snag him for cheap, but snag him.
I will go Pacheco. My number 2 is going to be Jeff Wilson, but again, it's the 49ers, so we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
James Robinson, I'm with you. So similar top 3, and then my 4 is going to be Dontrell Hilliard. There's some weird stuff going on in Tennessee, and I like the position he's in. So
I'm very similar. I might even put I might put Michael Carter up there.
If you don't have Michael Carter already and he's available in your league,
which he's not available in a lot of leagues, so that's a caveat one. And so is James Robinson.
Same with James Robinson
because he's my number. Yeah,
I'd say James Robinson, probably Michael Carter, and then those are probably my top 2. And then I'd probably say I like White a lot, so I'm going to say White.
Okay.
And then
love White.
Let's say Khalil Herbert, actually.
Okay.
Nice.
So,
all right, let's talk. This should be a little quicker, but let's talk tight ends here.
Oh, we're going to the easy one first.
I got a fun one.
Okay.
Taysom Hill had some interesting play time. He's an easy slide in for tight end, and I think he's available in most leagues. I think he's available in
he's only rostered in 10% of Yahoo.
Yeah.
Again, we were looking at
Yahoo. I want to say I think Sleeper was like 12, something like that.
Yep.
I mean, he's not rostered in a lot of leagues. And the fact that he has this weird potential where he can come in as quarterback and he can get rushing yards and he can do some passing touchdowns. He's a weird wild card to throw in there.
I promise you really quick. Can I quickly go through the top 5 tight ends?
Yeah.
Who would you think is at the top of top 5 tight ends?
Available?
You mean for fantasy points?
Yeah. Who would you guess before the season?
Kelsey.
Mark Andrews.
Kyle Pitts.
So we got Kelsey. Definitely at the top. He had a hell of a heck of a
Pitts
game.
is not anywhere near there.
O.J. Howard, who didn't even have a team just a little bit ago. Taysom Hill's number 3.
Yep.
Gerald Everett.
Gerald Everett.
Jeez, I can't say
Gerald Everett.
And Will Dissly.
Will Dissly years ago? No. So Will Dissly years ago had that game.
Comes out.
I have to talk about this because everybody slacks about it.
He was good.
He had that game where he had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half, and then he got catastrophically injured. He was out for the rest of the season in the second half. Yeah. And then every time he comes in, he's always a target in Seattle. I mean, he's just such a big body. He plays that good tight end role where he can get in the end zone.
Mobile.
He can bring the ball
I
down.
agree with you. I just wanted to point that out, how ridiculous the tight end position is.
Will Dissly's not going to be on the waiver wire anymore.
Stupid.
Yeah.
I'm feeling really good about investing in Kyle Pitts a lot. That feels great right now with his 4.9 points or whatever it was. And,
but
he'll be fine.
But he's probably still top 12. Let me check.
It was not a good week.
It was not a good week for tight ends. Speaking of a tight end that did really well, actually, is the Bengals tight end, Hayden Hurst.
Yes. Surprisingly.
Well, T. Higgins went out too, which I do think really did help him. But T. Higgins is going to be out this week. He's actually in my streamers, but I think he might actually be one that is worth picking up and maybe even keeping. If you have tight end issues, Hayden Hurst is a good place to look and maybe a safe haven for you.
8 targets, which anytime you have above 5 targets as a tight end, you're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely, it's huge.
Speaking of a higher amount of targets than 5, Alberto.
Yeah,
Alberto is available in a significant amount of leagues. I would say
elite speed for the position as well. Alberto is very fast.
Yeah, he's very fast. He has good hands. Russell Wilson. I mean, there's that other guy. What's his name? Beck.
He's really a fullback, but he plays the kind of hybrid.
He had a great catch.
Russell Wilson had his eyes open and was intentionally hitting Alberto. I think Alberto is definitely, if he's available, is a good pickup. Tight end's a hard position. I think he's a good one to stash.
Absolutely.
Potentially play.
Yeah.
All right, you only get one more. Otherwise, we're going to recommend everyone on the waiver wire again.
I didn't.
You only get one.
I didn't even say anybody yet, have I?
Yeah, you get one.
Okay, we only get one for this one. Tight ends, we only get one.
Because you'll name the whole waiver wire every time.
Yes,
that's what happens.
Well, you got to talk through it if you would want to pick those people up. No. I'd say Tyler Higbee, actually. He's 55% Yahoo owned, so he's probably owned, but I'd definitely check to make sure he isn't because he was heavily involved. Allen Robinson did not look good there.
How many targets did Higbee have? I thought it was like over 10.
It was 11.
Yeah.
11.
So
that's insane.
That was a really huge one.
Insane for a tight end.
Yep. So I think that's something to definitely check on the waiver wire.
Well, he was not super efficient on those targets. He was like, what did he end up with? Like 5 for 60?
5 for 39, yep.
Yeah. But still, he did a lot of
targets.
A lot of targets.
Yep, very involved. So.
Okay, so through the tight ends, let's go to one of the more fun ones, and that's wide receivers.
Let's go wide receiver here.
I gotta talk about.
Spend a little more time here, Eli. Don't worry.
I gotta talk about my boy Devin Duvernay.
You've been on this Duvernay hype train
on him, but it doesn't make any sense. So he's in all leagues he's like ranked 2000th.
Yeah.
But he is obviously there's something to it. He's behind. I think he had more. He had 2 touchdowns, and that was the big thing.
He has been disrespected and buried because people didn't know his name, and Lamar doesn't throw the ball enough, and whatever else. And
he looks like he might be the guy in Baltimore. He had a lot of goal line, like again the 2 touchdowns over Rashad Bateman,
and Mark Andrews.
That's a pretty significant look right there.
Yeah.
I think going into this next game, they have a favorable matchup. I forget who they're playing though. I think they're playing the Dolphins.
We have the technology.
We do.
I think they're playing the Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually who the Ravens play this week.
And
look it up here.
I would say that he's probably going to have a pretty solid week this week again. He's a dude I've been harping at. Nobody believes me whenever I talk about him, and so I got to keep talking about him until he finally pans out, and then I can say I told you so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely a good waiver wire pickup. And one that, once again, I don't know that I would go crazy, 20, 30% of your budget or anything, but...
I would say 10% is fair.
Yeah, if you can get it for cheap, I think it's definitely good. Yeah, they play the Dolphins.
Yeah. He's been getting a lot of disrespect. I think there also might be a high run on him. You know how it works sometimes.
So my boy, who you can pick up for free, this is free 99 right here. This is someone that I have been absolutely on the hype train since the draft. And that is going to be Kyle Phillips, who came out and had 9 targets, 6 catches for 65 yards. He is just human upside, boys. 1% of leagues he's owned. You can grab him for maybe $1, maybe $2. I mean, almost nothing. You can get this guy who, quite frankly, looks like Tennessee's version of Hunter Renfrow from years past, who had more targets than Treylon Burks. Did more on his targets than Treylon Burks. And I know he's a 5th-round draft pick, so people are burying him. But don't sleep on this guy. He has an excellent release package. He's an elite slot receiver. And he looks really good.
I would say that Treylon Burks is another worthwhile look. He didn't necessarily have the greatest game. However, everything that everybody's been saying on the Titans is that he's going to have a significant role.
He put that to bed. He did.
And the
training camp drama. He put to bed
the fitness and all that stuff. He's going to have a role, and I think him and Kyle Phillips are going to have. They're going to have Ryan Tannehill just throwing to him the entire time. it's a good offense to be a part of right now.
Their targeted per route run was really high. Yep. That's a really sticky stat to show that they're very involved when they are running routes. They're looking for them, or Ryan Tannehill is. So I would agree with both of those. Those are. I'd say Treylon Burks is a little bit more of a stash. He's a little bit harder to start right away.
I wouldn't start him right away, but I think that kind of like what we've been talking about, probably by midseason, he's going to have a pretty significant role with them. They said that's their goal the entire time. I really see with what's happened this week that there's no reason for them to meet that goal. It's very possible.
I'll talk about 2 Washington Commanders. I hate the name.
Everybody does, even the Washington Commanders hate the name.
They hated it as soon as they said it out loud.
Yeah. What was the one they had? They had a really good one too. It was like
a football team.
No,
I love that.
And they had a contest.
It was like the Red Tails. It was the pilots.
Was it Red Wolves or something?
No, it was the Red Tails from.
It's something like that. They had one that was like Wolves or something.
I don't know.
Pat McAfee was doing a whole thing on it. But anyway,
Washington Pentagons
would have been pretty much anything to me is better than the Commanders. I don't know how that got chosen.
Have you seen their logo? It's literally just a W on a white background.
Yeah.
Like, it looks terrible. It doesn't look cool.
The Washington Swamp. Oh, that's a different thing. So I wanted to bring up two different Washington Commanders. Obviously, Carson Wentz looked actually feasible in his start.
He looked like what we've been expecting him to look like. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he should have looked like.
They are who we thought they were.
So Curtis Samuel, I think he had a lot of usage.
He did.
So back in the Carolina days, they used him similar to this, and Ron Rivera actually was the coach for the Panthers when he was on the team, and he's a gadget player. So he had 4 rushes for 17 yards, and he also had 11 targets for 8 catches and 55 yards. That's a lot of usage. So somebody that gets those reverses and gets the rushing in addition to the amount of targets he's getting, even though they're more low value targets because they're going to be a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
In PPR leagues, you get that little bit extra rushing with the targets and receptions.
Well, and Curtis Samuel has elite speed.
He does.
So even though he gets those short yardage touches, like you only need 1 or 2 of those to pan out in a game for 30, 40 yards, and all of a sudden he's having a day.
He kind of had a bad rap when he was with the Panthers, and he got buried on the depth chart when they brought on DJ Moore, and then they brought on Robbie Anderson, and he just kind of got lost in the dust. And when he was up for contract renewal, they sent him over to I think he went with Ron Rivera when he left for the Commanders. Yep. And I mean, there's no reason he shouldn't continue to do exactly what they expected him to do.
Yeah.
No, he's a huge one. He actually, to me, might be the top.
He's one of the top for sure. And so top. I would say with wide receivers too, spending your budget, unless they're going to be an absolute game breaker, you think they're going to be a game breaker, I'd be careful not to spend too much of your budget on wide receivers.
Unless it's a game breaker, I would say capping out at 20% of your
completely.
For a wide
and that's
receiver,
somebody you're going all in. And I would say most of these keep
it
at 10%.
There will be a decent bit of them that you'll get more over the course of the season. It's just not going to. There's so many of them. They need to happen.
Yeah. So that was one, and then Jahan Dotson, who has been hyped. He was pretty under the radar. Got hyped a little bit towards the end of the draft season, but he was out there for a high percentage. I think he was in 2 wide receiver sets the whole game.
Yeah.
And so, and he caught, I think it was the 2 touchdowns.
I'll take that, Mecole Hardman.
He did have 2 touchdowns. So he only had 5 he had 5 targets, but being out there on the field and have that high snap percentage with the draft capital, how talented he is. Carson Wentz actually looked serviceable. I think he's a good pickup this
Jahan Dotson is very good at contested catches. Mm-hmm. For how small he is, he's actually incredibly good at it.
Yep.
He has great ball skills. He has elite speed. And I think that his role will grow throughout the season. Once again, the nice part about rookies is that they do tend to get better as the season goes on. I know we've only seen him in week 1, but he's very efficient in week 1.
And he's getting, so to put in your perspective, he had an 88% snap share, which is
massive.
That's a lot for a rookie
that's
in their
first
game.
That's a lot for a wide receiver alone. Only really the top wide receivers have anything above 85% or anything like that. So he's really close to that mark. So.
It's good to know. And bad news for Terry fans. Scary.
I think they could still live together, but
well, there's a lot of hungry mouths to feed in that offense now. And Carson Wentz is looking to throw that ball as much as he can.
That's true.
Another good reason to like Carson Wentz, though, we've kind of gone through and we talked about
he throws the ball.
Scary Terry.
Yep.
You've got Jahan Dotson, who looks really good. Curtis Samuel is going to get some unique touches and almost a Tyreek Hill style setup. I mean, that's a lot to like on the upside for Carson.
I think it's funny that you say that because we talked earlier on when we were doing some pre-podcasting stuff about when you draft a wide receiver, you're drafting the quarterback. Well, in this case, you're drafting a quarterback for their wide receivers because they have so many guys that are out there that are good. You're like, man, this guy, he's got to hit. He's got to make contact with at least one of them.
Yep.
So
and great wide receivers can and have in the past saved bad quarterbacks and vice versa. Great quarterbacks have saved bad wide receivers. So it does go both ways.
Yeah, and I think they have to be, depending on how bad. There's a certain point of bad quarterback where it does not matter
this might be his
who is catching the ball. It could be Jerry Rice out there. If you can't get him the damn ball, it's not going to work out very well.
Blake Bortles.
Yeah, how dare you talk about Blake like that? No.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So one we haven't mentioned that I just want to touch on had a absolutely massive day. Robbie Anderson, 8 targets, 5 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. Now, he had the one big play that was for like a 60-yard touchdown.
But that's what he used to do when he was a New York Jet. That's what he's known for.
And Baker is a very accurate down-the-field passer. You can say what you want about him.
Different than Sam Darnold.
Yes, Sam Darnold is not. Mm-hmm. Baker sometimes doesn't make the best decisions as a quarterback, but he can throw the deep ball, and he will throw the deep ball almost too much at times. And so to have a field stretcher like Robbie Anderson there, who immediately shows that he can do that. Yeah. For Baker, he's definitely a high priority for me as far as waiver wire pickups.
He had 8 targets, and his snap percentage was...
He outsnapped DJ Moore.
It was 100%. Really? He didn't leave the field.
He outsnapped DJ Moore.
That is insane.
Yep. So...
What was Moore's at? Do we have that?
Actually, no, DJ was 100
Oh, was he?
Yeah, so
I thought he outsnapped him, but he out-targeted
There's only like 5 players that actually had 100% for that week, and DJ and Robbie are both at 100%. So.
Well, that means that Carolina is looking to throw the ball as much as possible.
I think they do a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, I think.
Sure.
I unless you guys have anything else, I don't really think we want to talk about defenses and the waiver wire pickups because that's something that we can talk about in the next segment, which is streamers.
Yeah, let's talk streamers here.
So let's start with the quarterback again.
Well, we kind of already went through that, but let's do defenses if that's all right.
Okay, I have 2. My first one is going to be Green Bay at Chicago. As Aaron Rodgers put it perfectly himself, he owns Chicago. He's the king of Chi-Town.
Sure.
He's going to continue to do that until he finally decides that he wants to go off into a cabin in the woods and continue taking DMT.
Yep. Well, let's hope, for your defense's sake that there's just rain on the field again, and all it takes apparently is a little rain on Soldier Field, and no one can play offense. And
Justin Fields,
it's a whole different game.
Can just ball out like he does. So I mean, another one that I really like, and this is kind of weird, contrary to what we were talking about earlier, but is Pittsburgh versus New England. We obviously know that Mac Jones has got this, which we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about Mac Jones' injury.
I didn't know Mac Jones was injured.
Yeah, he has a back injury.
Yeah, I did hear that. It does seem like he is gonna play, but they're evaluating him.
So regardless, with that being said, number one, he's injured. It's possible he won't play. If he doesn't play, obviously, I don't even know who the backup is in New England at this point. Number 2, if he's injured, he's gonna be a little guarded, or if he's coming off of an injury, he's gonna be a little guarded. I also did not see a super productive offensive game from New England's point of view. I think that Pittsburgh is going to be able to slow him down just a little bit, even without TJ Watt. So I would stream the Pittsburgh defense going into the weekend. I would say if you had a choice between the two, I'd definitely go for Green Bay.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh, even without TJ Watt, has a very good defense.
They do. Nico Fitzpatrick had a great game.
He did, and he's a stud.
He is.
It's Brian Hoyer as the backup for New England, which it would be interesting.
Could be good or bad. You don't know how Bill Belichick plays.
Yeah. I'm leaning towards bad.
He might go down. He might go down to the grocery store and pick somebody up from the checkout aisle and say, "Hey, you want to
throw him
football,
in?
Son? I'll
make him a Hall of
Famer."
Every now and then he does that.
I know you got some defenses you want to talk about.
Yeah, so Cleveland's going to play the New York Jets.
Yep, I like that.
When you get a chance to start a defense with 2 great pass rushers against the New York Jets, and as we mentioned, the statue-esque Joe Flacco.
Yeah,
that's a absolute win.
Old Iron Legs Joe. He didn't go nowhere.
Leadfoot Joe over there.
I would also say that their corners are pretty solid. They still got Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward's a pretty effective lockup for some of these rookies that are playing for the Jets. I agree with that. I think that's a good start too.
Cool.
You got one?
Yes, Cincinnati against Dallas. Typically you wouldn't think about that, but now that the Cooper Rush is going to be the starting quarterback, and Cincinnati's defense actually looked really good.
I have low expectations.
You don't believe in Cooper Rush coming in 500 yards?
I have
just
low expectations.
Ripping it,
500 yards and 4
I have low expectations. They weren't doing very well when Dak was in. I don't expect him to do very well.
Yeah, they were already struggling with their starting quarterback. I mean, I think putting a backup is only going to make it worse. And you're right, Cincy's defense is underrated,
super,
and very good just overall.
Streaming, we're not going to do kickers.
No, I think we're on, boys, to Super Bowl picks.
Yeah.
And your dark horses.
We got to talk drops.
Oh, who to drop this week? Oh, you're right.
I got a couple. Yes. I got a couple of drops. Hunter Henry. I'd say it's a pretty sizable one. Sky Moore.
Sure. Completely agree.
I would say Russell Gage is definitely worth dropping. I don't know. That might get some hate for that.
So that one, I think, yes, if you have the right pickup, but Chris Godwin got hurt, which we didn't really talk about either.
We also did not talk about that.
He hurt his hamstring. It wasn't a re-injury of his knee, thank God, but
Nope.
he'll be out for maybe a week or two. So
Yeah.
But
him and Julio will have some bumped up work probably.
We still have Mike Evans and we still have Julio. I mean, we're still...
He'll be a little bit more relevant, is all I'm
Yeah.
saying. So I think when you're dropping, just to think about that.
3 running backs, I would say Isaiah Spiller.
Yes, for
Definitely
sure.
one of those ones to drop. We've been waiting for a while for him to hit, and he just hasn't.
Was he inactive, actually?
Yeah. No, he touched the field a little bit, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But he
didn't do
out.
much if he was...
No, you know what? He was out the entire time.
Yeah, I think he was inactive.
D'Ernest Johnson, at this point,
Yes, he was inactive. I know
he
that
was
for sure.
inactive, but I would drop him. I don't think that he's going to make very many waves, even if they
For
trade
sure.
Kareem Hunt. And then Mike Davis, man.
Yeah.
Not feeling it.
Yeah.
Great candidates. Yeah,
Not feeling it. I think those are
sure.
my big ones. Sky Moore, did I say that?
Yeah, you did. But that's a good one for sure.
So I'll pose one to you guys. What about James Cook?
Oh, yes, I do want to talk about this. I got 2 do not drops, and they're. I got number 1 is going to be number 1 is going to be Tyler Algiers, and number 2 is going to be James Cook. And the reason why is because it's their first game. Man, running backs have bad first games, especially rookie running backs. I think James Cook had that fumble, and then they were like, "Yeah, you're not touching the ball anymore."
1 carry, 1 fumble.
They loved him in camp. They loved him prior to, from what I remember, they loved him prior to the draft.
Yep.
They loved him in the preseason. He had 1 fumble and they took him off. I don't think that they're going to give him the death sentence for...
I
wouldn't get rid of him.
Devin Singletary looked really good, and they play Zach Moss a lot.
They do.
And I understand. I feel like he won't get more involved, but is it going to be enough to overcome some of the people that you could pick up this week? Like would you rather have James Robinson or James Cook?
I'd rather have James Robinson.
Exactly. So
yeah, depending on who you're getting, I
Carter.
totally understand what you're saying. But in a vacuum,
yes,
I do think Cook will be more involved. I think the fumble, I think he got put in the doghouse.
He did.
And it will take a little while for him to get out of that doghouse.
But they had so much that they talked about.
But if you're patient, he could easily be worth it.
They had so much that they liked talking about him going in. I don't think that that's going to get outweighed by 1 fumble.
Would you rather have, for example, one of those? I won't go through all of them, but like one of those higher end value handcuffs that have some value already, like Khalil Herbert.
Let's play a game,
Gainwell.
Dakota.
Yes.
Let's play a game. Isaiah Pacheco or James Cook?
Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco.
Jeff Wilson or James Cook?
Jeff Wilson.
Rex Burkhead or James Cook?
Ooh.
I'd probably go with James Cook there.
Yeah, same.
I would say yeah. I don't know, man. It depends on how good my running backs are currently doing.
So the problem is if your running backs are garbage, which are one of them, if your RB2 is not very good right now,
some of
us are in that situation. I'm not saying who it is.
Yeah.
But if you need somebody to start, like you need to get points. It's hard to hold on.
If you had Elijah Mitchell and you have to choose between picking up James Cook or picking up Rex Burkhead, take Rex Burkhead. As ugly as it is,
all day.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do to get points on the board now. But if you have solid running backs and you have the roster space for whatever reason, I do think James Cook will come back around and give him a little time.
I think I have Christian McCaffrey and DeAndre Swift in one of my leagues, and they're on the same team. I'm not tripping about
you just hang
Elijah Mitchell's replacement. I'm fine with James Cook.
What about this is another tough one. These hyped up rookies and preseason people that they were really hyped up and they did not perform. What about George Pickens? What would you do with him? Is that going to be another stash and hold for
I don't
another
know, man.
week?
I saw that block that he made during the preseason, and I was feeling it. I like him. I think I would hold on to him longer.
I would tend to hold on to George Pickens. Now, if you can get Robbie Anderson, if you can get
that's the issue. You got to compare like you're doing right now. It's perfect. You got to compare like what can you get?
I would easily drop George Pickens right now for Robbie Anderson and for Curtis Samuel
and
absolutely.
And Dotson.
I don't know about Dotson
because Dotson's on the field.
That's a tough one.
90%.
I don't know, man.
And Pickens had 3 targets for 1 catch. And which quarterback would you rather have? Would you rather have Carson Wentz or would you rather have Mitchell Trubisky?
Well,
Kenny Pickett.
It could become Kenny Pickett.
I would rather have Kenny Pickett.
Don't remember saying that, but maybe it just Squirt it out.
I don't think Mitchell Trubisky's going to stick around very long. He doesn't do that.
These are some of the things that you have to think about.
Well, no, that's true.
So
again, I think you're right on the borderline. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted Pickens or if you wanted Dotson.
It's also got to depend on who you have. Like if I'm sitting pretty on wide receivers, I have 3, maybe 4 wide receivers, and I'm not really hurting that. I'm not gonna maybe make as much of a stretch to drop somebody who might have long-term potential, like Curtis Samuel, or in favor of Kenny Pickett. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, George Pickens.
Let's play the game again. All right, who wants to play?
I'll play.
Okay, George Pickens or Robbie Anderson.
Robbie Anderson.
I think we all kind of agree with that. George Pickens or Kyle Phillips.
Kyle Phillips.
George Pickens or Treylon Burks.
George Pickens.
Treylon, he's way more involved already, and he's supposed to be. He potentially could be the number one.
He was drafted way ahead of Pickens.
I don't think George Pickens can be the number one with the quarterback and the wide receivers that are currently on the team.
He's not.
Did you see that catch by Deontay Johnson?
He's not beat Deontay.
He's not going to beat Deontay Johnson.
That catch that you see on the sidelines?
No. Oh, incredible! Absolutely.
The one-handed, across his body.
He's good.
Yep.
He's always been good, though. That's the thing.
No, I think you make a good point, Eli. Maybe the hype is carrying over a bit too much for me for Pickens. Devin Duvernay or George Pickens?
Devin Duvernay, absolutely, man. I've been singing this dude's praises for so long.
That's a little closer for me. I would probably go. I'd probably actually stick with George Pickens.
Really?
That one I'm
You're gonna eat those ones later. I'm pretty confident
in that one. There might be a post-episode bet here. Yeah. We'll talk about that later. But all right. Cool. Drop real quick. Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yeah.
I actually that one I would try to hold on to. Honestly, he's playing a lot of snaps. He's with.
He's a boomer bust player.
Yes.
The thing about Marquez, and
you know what you're gonna get.
He always has been. You're gonna get the 0 weeks. You're gonna get the 30-point weeks. He's who he is.
He's Kirkland brand Sammy Watkins.
What? Yeah,
that's what he is.
I mean, yeah, he's high upside, low floor. This is why I've been down on him all season.
What about Devontae Parker?
Drop. 100%.
You can just you don't even have to pick anyone up. You can just go ahead and drop him.
He ain't gonna do anything.
He had a very high snap percentage, but I agree. He did not look good. He only had one target.
I got one specifically for you.
Me?
Specifically for you.
Okay.
Kadarius Toney.
So this is my world, y'all. This is the hardest thing I'm dealing with right now.
You and I made a trade earlier on in the season.
All right, Eli, there's only one way to do this.
Oh fuck, dude.
Kadarius Toney or Curtis Samuel?
I'm gonna just say this real quick. So
okay, yeah.
The hope is that they're slowing him down because he's still coming back from injury and that he gets back. I
don't know. The other wide receivers saw pretty.
Sounds like that.
They saw a lot of time on the field.
If you watch the actual play on the field though, and he had those two rushes, he juked out like 6 people.
Yep.
It was just ridiculous. Made them look like fools and hold their jock straps.
I think they hate
but then
him.
that's all he had the whole game was 2 rushes, which is ridiculous.
I think they hate him. I think there's a lot of locker room hate going around.
There's something going on.
I heard he's hard to get along with.
It's just ridiculous.
Well, he demanded a trade at one point in the offseason, and I mean it's been a rough
I'm really honestly just because the hardest thing about knowing that you have him is that he doesn't have a lot of competition to overcome. It's more just a coaching decision, which can derail your whole season.
He's his own worst enemy.
But he has his talent is undeniable, and it's so hard to drop somebody that has the opportunity that he in front of him because there's not a lot of competition, and he has the talent on top of it. So I'm going to hold on to him one more week and try to drop
I hear you, but Curtis Samuel or Kadarius Toney.
Oh, dang it.
In every league that I'm in, for all these players,
I honestly
Kadarius Toney's my first one to drop.
I'm gonna I'll do Curtis Samuel.
He says Robbie Anderson or Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney.
No.
Gotcha. So that's kind of the line. So we found it. I actually agree with that. I do think that I would not bail on Toney because the talent. There's so much.
Another
outside.
injury. Their rookie wide receiver
Wandale
got hurt too. So
did he?
Yeah, I don't know how long he's going to be out, but he could be out next week.
Here's my thing about Kadarius Toney, man. We made a nice trade early on in the season, right? And we thought we were screwing the other person. You got Kadarius Toney, I got Hunter Renfrow. Neither one really panned out this week, so right now we're still trying to decide. But my thing with him is like he's had ample opportunity besides the injury in order to make his way onto the field, and he's had maybe like 2 or 3 games when he's been on the field that have been noteworthy. The problem is not much about that system has changed since he's been trying to do this. They still have Danny Dimes thrown to him. He still is competing with Sterling Shepard and what's his name, Darius Slayton. And now he had this new. There's not much about the system that's changed, dude.
Well, they have a new head coach. Yeah, but still,
they still have the same offensive coordinator.
Do they?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they do. But not much about that system has changed other than the head coach. I really have been giving this dude so many opportunities. I don't know that I can continue doing it, man.
I get it.
He's that bad boyfriend that's sleeping on my couch.
He's a holdover from the previous regime.
He is.
Yeah, he is.
And I do think that he has made a lot of enemies.
Yeah.
And
he's not
yes, talent does tend to win out, but it only wins out if coaches allow it on the field.
He's the boyfriend that's sleeping on your couch right
I'm
now.
telling
and you need
though,
to get rid of him.
Every time I watch him touch the ball,
he's amazing. He's absolutely incredible.
Honestly, it's just there's not another player like him as far as, and it's not like speed and Tyreek. I think it's like comparable to Tyreek, not vertical speed, but just the quickness and ability to get people out. It's just insane.
Not much has panned out though, and there comes time for you to look at a player and
he was injured majority of last year, and he had 2 or 3 games where he absolutely exploded.
So I agree with
you got to look at it
and
eventually and just
you hold him.
I think
unless there's someone that you have to drop him for.
So next week,
that you think
if I don't see improve it, if he still only has 2 rushes or 2 targets next week, if I don't see, I would say I need to see at least 4 or 5 touches. So, and if I don't see that, then I'll
ask you this. I would say this is more probably more appropriate comparison. If you had to drop a player to pick up one of these guys, right, that we were talking about earlier, somebody who was drafted in a similar position, Brandon Ayuk or Kadarius Toney, who would you drop?
I would drop Toney.
Yeah, Toney.
And that's really what a lot of people are going into. It's like it's not necessarily who am I dropping to get him. It's who else do I have on the team.
Jahan Dotson or Kadarius Toney. Who you dropping?
Probably Kadarius Toney, man.
I probably do.
Really?
I like Jahan Dotson.
I actually dropped Jahan Dotson, and I like Jahan Dotson too.
I know.
I do. I'm a sucker for upside. Obviously, I have Christian Watson in like every league imaginable, which is
Kadarius Toney though.
That
rough, upside, just the margin just keeps getting smaller.
I agree.
I think actually the best thing that could happen for him is a trade.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but
just get him.
I want to know what he did. Like, what did he do?
Dude, he's just a hard.
Sleep with the coach's wife. What happened?
Probably just ran his mouth. He
seems like the kind of guy who would run his mouth.
I just think he's got a mouth.
That's the worst thing about it is like if he's on the field and they throw him the ball, he is going to explode. And I promise.
And they did get him the ball in the fourth quarter. When the game was on the line, they had
2. He's a wide receiver. They gave him 2 rushes.
I don't know.
If there's any part that is like the GM said I had to play you, okay, but this is all you get. That has got to be the most.
And the worst thing about it coming into the season, I'm just going on a rant right now. That everybody, the coaches and all the hype was like, it'll be Wandell and it'll be Toney. That'll be the 2 starting wide receivers, and then they throw Richie. What's his name? Ricky something or another. Started like.
Who is this?
I don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No.
Yeah. Look at the snap counts if you.
All I know is that I'm not feeling Kadarius Toney anymore. I'm kind of just.
He is buried on a depth chart.
Kind of over it, man.
He is in.
And it seems like he's buried because there's some beef going on.
That's what's going on.
It's not necessarily like his playability, and that kind of bugs me. And the fact that they've already refused him a trade, if they're already like not having good time with him. He might just
not be a great person. I don't know.
But
that and its drama off the field can itself screw you in fantasy. And
absolutely. Look at what's his face that couldn't stop smoking the reefer.
Josh Gordon?
The NFL player formerly known as Josh Gordon.
Yes.
He's no longer playing anymore. He got released from he's officially done. He's officially no longer on a team.
Is he on a practice squad or no?
I don't think so. He's fully released. I think the Chiefs released him. They were the last ones.
Yeah.
And Le'Veon, you know what? Getting released completely could be the best thing for your career. Le'Veon Bell knocked out Adrian Peterson in a boxing match. That was pretty cool.
I did not even see that.
It was pretty cool. It was quick, man.
Richie James Jr., who had 70% of the snaps. Tell me you knew his name before going into the season.
I had no idea that was even a
I didn't know his name until you just said it.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. And he had 5 catches for 59 yards. Give those to Tony!
You need to write a letter to the GM and the coaching staff of the Giants and be like, dude, please, you're killing me here.
Nobody knows this person.
All right, we got one more thing to do.
Yeah.
Yes, let's get into.
And there's some Super Bowl predictions. Let's talk some AFC, NFC. Who do you think's going to take those? And then we'll talk the Super Bowl, and then we're going to give you I want to know your dark horse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Give me less.
AFC. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Buffalo Bills.
I think that they're the only ones.
Because...
Let's talk AFC Championship. Buffalo Bills and who?
Buffalo Bills and the Denver Broncos. No, if I'm being honest, it'd probably be Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think it's going to be the Buffalo Bills and the Chargers, man. I think the Bills are going to take it.
Chargers.
They look good.
They always choke. I'm just counting on them doing that again this
good.
year. They do look good.
They look good.
I was literally gonna say I know it's so chalk, but they look so good, and I feel like
so good.
And
Gerald Everett for
the
them
Von Miller
good.
ad
was a ridiculous.
Their
front four is insane right
and
now.
they have a
They were just
backfield.
they ate Matt Stafford.
And Josh Allen looks like he just is.
As good
he
as
looks
he's ever
like
been.
he's messing around. He looks like he's out there. He's kind of just like.
I just can't go against. I have to say Buffalo Bills, Kansas City too, and I would say.
The Bills are going to take it this year. Oh yeah, I agree completely.
For AFC Championship, who's going to go to the Super Bowl? I'd say
that'd be great for the Bills because it'd be a revenge game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which would be a really cool narrative too. Actually,
it would.
Yeah, hopefully it goes into overtime and Josh.
Smites Pat Mahomes.
They go to flip the coin and Josh Allen just grabs it and throws it into the stands. Like,
no,
not again!
I brought my own coin.
I get the ball.
I get to touch the ball this time. They did change the rule for the playoffs, right?
Did.
So he'll get the ball either way, but
NFC, because we're all in agreement on who's going to win the AFC. So NFC.
I know, that's kind of
NFC. Now you guys have kind of badmouthed this team a little bit, but I'm still going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I'm not bad-mouthing them. I just think that Tom Brady didn't look as good in the first game as he probably should have.
Well, when you miss half a training camp, you take a week or two to get settled in.
It's Tom Brady. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, in the long run, I think it's to me, it doesn't matter. Tom Brady will be exactly who he has been. Father Time will be undefeated, but I think
you still got
Tom Brady has done more than anyone else to stave him off, and I think that'll continue this year.
Now so I have an unlikely pick, even though they lost. I think that the 49ers have a pretty decent shot this year. It hurts me to say as a Seahawks fan.
49ers versus who?
That's a great question.
I don't know. Because it won't be the Rams. Because they'll play each other earlier on. It won't be Rams.
They can't they? If
one's
a wild card, one has a wild card.
It's a little hard.
Normally I would say the Rams just because you can't ever count out Matt Stafford and their defense got a little bit worse, but it's not significantly worse. But they just were so bad against the Bills that I'm not necessarily singing their praises right now. But I still like Kyle Shanahan. I think Kyle Shanahan is it probably is going to be the 49ers and the Buccaneers. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I like that.
49ers and the Buccaneers.
And who wins? The Niners, you said?
I would say the Niners, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go actually with the Bucs versus the Rams.
Yeah. That's not going to be a bad game either.
No.
Who do you think will win? Bucs? You think the Bucs are going to do it?
I do think the Bucs will take it.
Now, who do you think is going to win between the Bucs and the Bills?
I would have the Bills in the victory in that one.
I think that's the obvious choice.
No, the Bills they've never won a Super Bowl as a franchise. So their franchise
they've been to a lot.
I think they went to like 3 in a row.
Yeah, and they lost all 3 in a row. It's great.
Yeah, some of their franchises like cursed when it comes to Super Bowls, but I think maybe this is
every folding table in the entire United States is going to be hiding for its life.
Absolutely,
if they win the Super Bowl, it's just over.
Yeah,
completely
done. Every flip cup table, all that stuff. What about you?
I was exactly the same. Rams, Tampa. I'm going to go Rams, though, to take it. So let's say Rams, Bills. And
rematch of game 1.
Yep, and I'm going to take the Bills. Championship.
Now, with that being said, who is your dark horse team that you are rooting for that you think is going to upset some stuff?
Can we do one for each division?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say I'm going to say Philadelphia Eagles.
You son of a...
Is that?
I have it written down even. I can even prove it. Yeah. Yes.
I really like their team. Their defense is actually pretty good. They've got some good running backs. The AJ Brown addition was tremendous, and I think Jalen Hurts is going to be good enough to get him there.
Then I'll switch mine up. I'll go with the Minnesota Vikings then from the NFC. Because I do think that they're underrated. Kirk Cousins is a very good passer. Justin Jefferson looks as elite as a wide receiver could possibly look.
And Dalvin Cook is still really good.
Their defense looked good.
Their defense looked good.
That was the biggest. That was their biggest weakness last year, is the defense.
I would have to agree with you on the Minnesota Vikings just from watching that game, the way they shut down Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers always gets the bye week at the beginning of the season.
Don't let our friends from Midwest see this because they'll get their heads blown up.
But I think the Vikings are a dark horse.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Now for the AFC, man. I know I said that they'll probably go to the AFC Championship, but the Chargers, man, they have so much to lose because they do it every year, and they have so much to gain because they never do it. So, and they have the team this year. If everything were, let's say Keenan Allen comes back on time, we have the full roster. Their defense is looking stacked.
I'm not going to say the Chargers, you said it, but that would probably have been my dark horse candidate too. Just like you said, the offense, but they also added some really good defensive players. Khalil Mack, they just traded for. He just sealed the game for them against the Raiders.
They still have Joey Bosa.
They added
he's a
cornerback that was really good too. In addition to their defense is already really good. God, it was Patriots cornerback is in free agency. They paid a lot of money for him. J.C. Jackson. J.C. Jackson, they had some major moves on the defensive side.
They have a lot.
I can't wait for them to end up being.
I know you always think they choke.
They choke every year.
They do, and it's not like
they're going to be 10-7 and just miss the playoffs.
You said Chargers, so I gotta pick a different team. Again, that would be my team if I normally if you didn't pick them already, but.
You say the Broncos, I'm going to throw you off the roof.
I'm going to actually go with, instead of saying the Broncos, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
Interesting.
I think that they have a really good chance. I think they have really good coaching that's been there for a while, and I think Lamar is, now that he'll be hopefully healthy again, that he's just it's so hard to plan for. He's a game changer.
I would say if I have to choose for the NFC, somebody different than the Vikings, I would say the Saints.
Yeah, the Saints
I think the Saints are looking good, and I think with the fact that Michael Thomas might finally be Michael Thomas again, that is just enough that's going to let Jameis Winston go 5,000 30 for 30 again.
I mean, honestly, the Saints are going to be wild if Jameis Winston throws for 5,000.
Dude, I love him as a person. I don't know if you've ever seen the interviews.
Oh my gosh,
he's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. He just seems like he's a good person.
He needs to be Mike 24/7.
Yeah, and he's a goober.
Please give him a reality TV.
Yeah, he's gonna say actually just make a TV show that's just Jameis 24/7.
I'm like rooting for him. I'm like, I like Jameis Winston.
Can we just follow you around and just hear you talk?
Now we've been talking a lot about Super Bowl and dark horses, and one team that we have to mention that they made it all to the Super Bowl last year, folks. Yeah. The Cincinnati Bengals.
0-1. Cincinnati Bengals.
So
should not be 0-1 on a missed challenge call on a Jamar Chase touchdown, but I digress. As a Jamar Chase owner,
very upset.
I'm very upset. But yeah.
I don't know, man. I see the fact that their failings came to a head against the Rams, and the Rams just kind of tore them up. And I think that kind of left them a little bit exposed. It left a few chinks in their armor that not necessarily everybody had exposed previously last year. So I think that they're going to have a harder time this year. I don't think to count them out. I definitely think that they're going to win their division. But I don't think that they're necessarily.
It's a tough division, so that's actually bold call even. But yeah, I'm with Baltimore there. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we should count them out. I think that if there's a team that could really mess some stuff up, they really could. They have the T. Higgins injury sucks for them.
It's only 2 weeks,
but it's only
They've got the youngest. I think they have the youngest average of players of any team.
And they technically it didn't really
starters.
They didn't really show it the first week against the Steelers, but Steelers are a really good defensive line, so maybe that's why it didn't look so good. But they did a lot of upgrading in the offseason in the offensive line, so we'll see. Maybe in week 2 if they have, I forget who they're playing, but maybe they'll have a little bit more time for Joe Burrow because he was under duress.
But Joe Burrow came back from a a negative 6-point deficit. So, in the fact that he's still, at least in the leagues that I had him, he finished with 22, 23. Yeah. Coming back from a 6-point deficit and then going to put up 22 points is a significant feat. That means he would have been almost 30 if he hadn't have had all those screw ups. I can't necessarily say that people are going to be a little down on Joe Burrow just because they lost, but I think he'll recover. I think he's fine, and I don't think he's worried about it either.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
All right. Well, I think that is going to wrap up our show for today, everybody. Yep.
Good luck to the waiver wire. Hope you get all your players that you want.
Your bids hit. You bid exactly $1 above the next closest person.
Exactly. You can't take the money with you, so make sure you spend it.
That's right.
Wait, you don't get to carry it from season to season?
I know. Forgot
that's why I lose.
Forgot to tell you. Forgot to tell you last year.
Oh, it makes sense now. I hope you guys had fun. It's fun doing this.
Can't wait for week 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you guys during week 2.
Peace.
See ya.
Sayonara.